Hello everyone. I very recently acquired this new phone. I know it looks like an old phone. Actually, one of my coworkers the other day told me she thought it looked like a phone from 1997, but that's just factually incorrect. This is what phones looked like in 1997.
Book tickets, check timetables, do your banking, join a news service and receive only the news and information that interests you. Check your email or have fax headers sent straight to your phone.
This is more like 2007, maybe 2007 to 2010 era, right when smartphones were kind of taken off, but the feature phone still reigned supreme. Yeah, this phone actually came out last year, late 2020. I actually had to pre-order it in September or October or so of 2020 because it had to be released by necessity. This is the Nokia 225 4G, as you can see here on the box. And the most specific active word on that is 4G. This means that it can connect to LTE towers, which very soon in the United States will be the only cell network outside of, I suppose, 5G that you can access. However, the GSM and the 3G towers are going to be basically obsolete, or for most networks are already obsolete. I've had an iPhone since April of 2015, at least an iPhone of some sort. I've had two replacements since then, and I've had this one in particular. This is the new model SE since May of 2020. But over the course of basically the late summer and especially into the fall, I developed a resentment and a hatred for this guy. Not the dog, I love the dog, but the phone itself. The dog I could never resent. But the phone itself, I genuinely despise with an intensity that I did not know I could have for pieces of technology. My problem is that what this offers me is so low rate, it's so nondescript. It's like I'm not even enjoying it anymore. I remember like 7-8 years ago there was this joke I thought was really funny where it was like, my iPhone's kind of like a time machine, and that I look at it and whenever I look up several minutes have passed, and it's that was like fun back then. But now it's like this, and I look at it and I just kind of hate everything. Maybe it's just that the world around is not good right now, which to be fair it's not. But it's not, I don't like having it where I'm just instinctively pulling it out and looking at it anytime there's a dull moment in the day, and what I get out of it is not enough it's actively not a good thing. So I decided I didn't want to deal with this, and I thought, for $50, I would give this guy a shot, and over the past 2 to 3 weeks, I believe I've been using this primarily, and honestly, I've really, really enjoyed it. A lot of the problems I had with the smartphone, I haven't had with this guy, and that's good. I know this sounds like something that your dad says, but, if you're struggling with the same sort of thing, maybe consider getting one of these. I'm not doing it like a ringing endorsement, like a ad for the Nokia 225 4G, but it's something that has helped me out a little bit. Now, the Nokia 225 4G, I guess I could just call it the 225, is not too slim on the features. It's basically a phone from 2007. It's got a shitty little camera. On the back there, it's got a shitty little web browser that can browse the internet. I've been on websites. But if you look through all these features we've got here, one that's going to come as a little bit of a surprise, and the camera's not going to focus on it, a little controller. That's right, folks, it's video games. Yeah, there are 11 video games on this phone, released in 2020, 11 new Java mobile phone games. This was released last year, and there were new Java mobile phone games released for it. And I know I keep repeating that, but that's because it's kind of surprising to me that that would happen. Remember, the mobile phone game is kind of anachronistic. It was something that really only could exist in a prior era. Mobile phone games, for the most part, were advert games. Those were meant to entice you to purchase or consume or otherwise interact with some other product. You had mobile phone games based off of television shows, off of movies, off of sports leagues, off of other video games. There were plenty of mobile phone games that were basically games like a Call of Duty. You could play a little mobile Call of Duty, and then it would say, hey, go buy the real thing, you know? And that's what they were for. The mobile phone game now is completely different from that in the fact that basically this phone is not the phone, not the dog. The phone is designed basically to do whatever it's used to do. So you're not really squeezing fun out of that machine in the way that you would with something like this. This is designed, I keep picking them up. You understand what I'm saying. When I say smartphone, I mean this one. When I say feature phone, I mean I'm not going to keep doing that. You've seen the dog enough. Yeah, so I assumed that mobile phone JavaScript games were pretty much moribund, that they were dead and go. I kind of assumed that Java mobile phone games are completely moribund. I didn't think about them for years because I have had a smartphone since 2011. I had an Android LG phone in like 2011. I haven't had to use a feature phone like this in a decade, basically. And so I just don't think about it all that often. And lo and behold, there are new, not only are there games on this, there are new games on this. That's the astounding thing. I'm going to go into all of them here in just a second. Believe me, I will. I know I've built this up a lot, but it's astounding to me. Most of these games were developed within the past 3 years. I believe all of these games that were dated were developed between like 2018 and 2020. That's the most surprising thing to me about this whole thing. So in the 10 years, when I first got a smartphone, I believe it was December of 2010, I believe it was a Christmas present. Since then, it's been 10 years, and smartphone games have immensely progressed. You can find any sort of modern game on there. I think like games like Final Fantasy 15, I think, had a release on the iPhone. It's very impressive, and there are games that make use of the smartphone as a platform, not just putting console games onto the phone. It's making the smartphone like its platform in and of itself. It's more of a dedicated gaming platform than mobile games ever have been before. And I'm not like breaking new ground by saying this, but it's the case. And I've had a smartphone for 10 years, haven't had to think about feature phone games for 10 years, but wouldn't you believe it, feature phone games have progressed a little bit as well, as evidenced by the 11 games on this phone, which I am going to get into now. So when I was in my early years of high school, about a decade ago, give or take, I was a huge fan of this one games news outlet. It was my go-to place for video game news. It was GamesRadar.com. This was before they added the plus. I don't even remember when they did that, but this is back when it was just GamesRadar. It was the online wing of future publishing. I would go to GamesRadar for games, check NPR on my little phone screen for normal news, and I went to Bleacher Report or SB Nation for sports news. Now I go to thecollectionchamber.blogspot.com for all my gaming needs. I go to The Athletic for sports, and I just kind of wait for people at the grocery store that I work with to walk up to me and tell me what grinds their gears to learn about what goes on in the world. Anyway, in 2012, GamesRadar made a list of the top 100 best video games of all time. And the game that finished second was Tetris, which seemed very high. The game that finished first was Portal, but the game that finished second was Tetris. Not like a Half-Life, not like a Ocarina of Time, not like any of that stuff. Any of the games that are like, games are art. It was Tetris. And back then, I thought it made sense. Now, they were widely ridiculed for it at the time, but back then I thought it made sense. I was like, yeah, no, Tetris is a great game. Tetris is, it's a simple game. I can just pick it up and play. I'm always up for a game of Tetris. However, I disagree with them on that point. Not that I don't think that Tetris is a great game, because it is, but I don't think that it's the number 2 best game of all time. I don't think it's the number 1 best game of all time, because the number 1 best game of all time is Snake for the Nokia 225 4G. So, this game of Snake was developed in 2017. It was a new version of Snake made for the re-released or rebooted Nokia 3310 that I probably would have purchased. I was actually about to purchase instead of this one, but they never actually released the 4G version of the 3310 in the United States, so it's not available to me. What's weird even is that this game developed in 2017 is actually, I believe, the oldest on the phone. All of the rest of them, even the ports, and there are ports, that's the other weird thing that'll be interesting to talk about in the future, those were developed after this game. So the oldest game on this phone was developed in 2017. That means that's just bizarre to me. It didn't cross my mind that people were making new JavaScript phone games. I'm happy that there are, but it just was strange to me. This game is not any different, really, fundamentally from any of the classic Snake games. The only real different things are that it's in color. Number one, the old phones couldn't have done that, and for two, there are like little extra modes that you can try. It'll like put walls in and around the field of play, so that's about it. But otherwise, this is Snake. You know, there's a quote from an old Angry Video Game Nerd episode that I like a lot, where he picks up a copy of Dracula for the VIC-20, and he says,
"Look at that cartridge. That's what you call a game."
And I feel that that line applies here. The essence of that line applies here. This is what you call a game. No more, no less, very few bells, very few whistles, very little gravitas. This is a damn video game at its core. Everything built off of this. You can go back in time, but this is the thing that's at the start. It's like butter. You know, like you build everything around, but you have to have butter at the start for a lot of this stuff, whatever. It was the perfect game for the early era of mobile phone games. It's very easy to learn how to play, very simple to learn how to play, pretty easy to get better at, very simple to see yourself improving at, but very, very difficult ever to finish. I actually did finish it a little while ago, and this is what happened. I basically beat Snake, because in this version I guess the stuff doesn't spawn on the top row, but seems to have frozen the entire phone, so I guess that's what happens when you fill the whole screen. But yeah, bizarre as that is, you can play this on your phone. It kills time. It's basically perfect at fulfilling the role of the game you can play with an old mobile phone. Also, I love the high score screen on this. It's great. There's nothing special to it, no name entry, no date, just like, yeah, here are the highest scores you've got on this phone. That's all you need, though. You don't need any more of that. I'm not sharing this with my friends. I'm not asking other people how they're doing on their games of Snake, you know? So as I said, there were 11 games on this phone. 8 of them are locked behind this menu with the little controller. 3 of them are on the home screen, however. One of them is Snake. The others are Racing, Attack, and Ninja Up. And Snake is, of course, as I've said, very high quality. So I would expect for both Racing, Attack, and Ninja Up to be among the highest quality games on the phone. They put them on the home screen, after all. They didn't hide them behind a menu. So Racing Attack is a little bit like the overhead driving segments of the NES Ghostbusters game, except you have less to do in Racing Attack than you do in the NES Ghostbusters game driving segments. You drive your car, and you try not to get hit by the other cars on the road. It's very boring, and the car moves very slowly, and so often what I'll do is I'll move the car further and further up the screen so that it'll go faster, which makes the game significantly more difficult, which makes the game end earlier, which means I don't have to play it anymore, so we all kind of win. The sound design is impeccable, honestly. You got 3 beeps, and then there's a little sound when you hit another car, but during the run of play there's absolutely nothing going on. But on the whole, this is not good. This did not deserve to be on the home screen. Now, Ninja Up is the same game, basically, except you play as a little ninja and you climb up a series of trees or walls or something, avoiding throwing stars. The most notable aspect of this game is the sound design, mainly the music, which consists entirely of about a second-long loop which plays indefinitely. Otherwise, it is precisely as good as Racing Attack, which is not very. Here's one, Doodle Jump. Yeah, it's the game we all know, we all love. I had a demo of Doodle Jump on my original smartphone I got for Christmas in 2010, a shitty little LG, the Optimus One P500, the mini USB port for which failed within like half of a year of owning it. I never played the Doodle Jump demo really myself. I was always a Poppy Jump stan, but this is definitely Doodle Jump on a feature phone. The one thing that sticks out to me is that this game, Doodle Jump, this port of Doodle Jump, was developed in 2019. Now, Doodle Jump itself was a game made originally for smartphones in 2009, later ported to feature phones a decade later, ported down a decade later after it was already obsolete. How bizarre. If you loved Racing Attack, you will love its identical twin sibling, Nitro Racing. This is the same game, the only difference is that you can sometimes pick up a power-up that lets you kill the other cars on the road. Really didn't need to have both of these games on this phone, but whatever. So here we have another port of an established mobile game classic. This is Crossy Road. Yeah. Crossy Road came out originally in 2014 on smartphones, so it's a little bit newer than Doodle Jump. It's definitely the most graphically impressive game of the collection here. Basically, it's a remake of Freeway for the Atari VCS, which I'm sure gets everybody very excited, kind of like Frogger in a way as well. Definitely strains the hardware, it feels like. It runs pretty slowly, but, you know, it's impressive that it's here at all. I think the most ambitious and interesting game on the Nokia 225 is this game, Aero Master. When I play and look at this, it's kind of like looking at those early Intellivision Dungeons and Dragons games. Like, I know what they're trying to do, despite the limitations of the console, and I am impressed by it, even if it's not that great of a time actually playing it. This is like a pseudo RPG. There's a little bit of an almost leveling feature. You play the role of the titular Aero Master and you masterfully shoot your arrows at your enemies and you move on from level to level. Playing this game knowing that it was developed in 2020 is also super interesting because that would make it the equivalent to those Intellivision D&D games coming out concurrently with like a game like Secret of Mana, like deep into the Super Nintendo era of RPGs. The iPhone App Store launched in 2008. This game came out 12 years after the iPhone App Store started putting games out. I don't know what the first RPG to come out on the iPhone App Store was, but I know there are a lot of modern games that get releases on the iPhone now, a lot of modern RPG games. As I believe I said before, Final Fantasy 15 I think got a release on the iPhone, and that was 3 years ago. It's just kind of anachronistic, I guess, that Aero Master was developed last year, and I don't think that many people other than me would buy this phone and then also be interested in playing a game like Aero Master. I had to pre-order this off of the B&H photo websites. Not a lot of people are going to go out and seek this out and get this, other than people like me who found out about this from like a subreddit. Because they're depressed because of their phone. There's really not a lot of like capitalistic or even artistic justification for Aero Master's existence other than the fact that somebody wanted it to exist and somebody else wanted that game installed on the new Nokias. And I really appreciate that. This is a game that is not anything except for what it is. And I think that's so cool that that's still around. There's ambition to this, but it's not trying at anything more than just being like a pretty cool mobile phone game. And I just think that's so cool. So after the most ambitious game, we end up with Cosmic Escape here. Probably, almost definitely, the least ambitious one. This game is exactly the same as Racing Attack, Nitro Racing, and Ninja Up. Mainly that you go forward and you try to avoid debris. In this case, little space asteroids. Cosmic Escape is precisely as good as those three games are, which, again, not very. This game is interesting, though, as we need to operate under the understanding that these games, and in particular this game, do not need to be on this phone. The target audience for this phone, I think, is probably an older subset, like the elderly people whose Motorola flip phones they've hung on to since 2007 are about to go out of function. Nokia really could have gone away with just putting one game, probably just Snake, on this phone. Probably could have gone just not put anything on this phone. That would have been completely fine, and I would have understood it absolutely as well. But they put 11 games on here, and one of them is this absolute dead weight of a game, Cosmic Escape. Cosmic Escape's existence is one of futility. It is a bonus that you do not need. It is a bonus that you do not really want, or even consider getting. It's like after, actually, I remember being in high school, we had to do the NCLBs, you know, the No Child Left Behind assessments, and I remember we finished the assessments one day, and my teacher gave us these like stale granola bars, not as a reward for doing the assessments well, just because we had finished. And I was like, well, I didn't expect to get a stale granola bar after this, and I don't expect to get Cosmic Escape on this. I didn't want the stale granola bar, I didn't want Cosmic Escape, but I got it, and who am I to care if it's good or not? This game's like a benign tumor on an animal that lives in the woods that nobody really knows exists. I struggle to think, even if you gave this game to a kid in 2007 who just mainlined 4 hours straight of vintage angry video game nerd episodes, found his dad's digital camera, and has a thirst for YouTube fame, would even he, playing Cosmic Escape, be able to feign anger at it? I doubt it. That's how insignificant this game is. And yet it still exists. And yet I'm talking about it on this YouTube channel. Now here's one for the soccer fans in the room. That on. I considered calling Football Trophy another racing attack-like, which is the official title of that genre that I've just developed, but I think it's just different enough in a few ways. For one, your goalkeeper stays on his line and cannot move forward, which already makes this guy a better goalkeeper than Michael Gisperning.
We can take it again. Gisperning was off the line.
Michael Gisperning. Anyway, the key difference between Football Attack, or whatever it's called, Football Trophy, and its brethren is that in those games you're trying to avoid objects. In this game you're actively trying to hit objects and knock them away so that you do not concede a goal to the invisible other team that is raining down a barrage of soccer balls. This game is precisely as exciting as you would think it is, and it remains as exciting as you think it would for as long as you think it would remain exciting, which is not very much and not very long. So Super Pet Twist falls under another common category of long-time mobile phone game. This is the classic Match 3 icon puzzle game. It's as generic as it gets, which is completely fine for this purpose, but it's not going to wow anybody. Really, very few. I would actually argue that 0 of these games are going to wow anybody for any significant reason. But this game is another case of it's exactly what you think it's going to be. It's a relatively bare-bones puzzle game meant for killing time when you're like waiting in line at the pharmacy, or sitting on a subway, or driving on a long stretch of highway. Of the 11 games that I've listed here, was that 11 or 10? I've said 11 this entire, I don't care. I would say only a couple of these are really like interesting or remarkable. Crossy Road and Doodle Jump are remarkable because they were meant for another platform. They're a downgrade from their intended purpose, something you very rarely see anymore, especially not in this sense. Whoever would have thought you would have seen a downgrade from a smartphone game to a feature phone game? That's bizarre. So that's something. Aeromaster is remarkable for its sort of ambition. I think it's very interesting for that matter. It's not super interesting, though it is kind of neat, I guess. A lot of this is mostly just kind of neat. Racing Attack and Nitro Racing are remarkable because they are the exact same game. Ninja Up and Cosmic Attack are remarkable if only for their slapdash shoddiness. Snake is remarkable because it's good. And I suppose that if I called 80% of the available games on this platform remarkable, that means something, but I also could not come up with more than about a sentence for each in terms of why they would be remarkable, which belies that even at their most significant, the games on the Nokia 2254G remain mostly insignificant. Which is fine. Again, these games occupy a strange role, one that's been lost over the past 15 years of smartphone progress. It's almost hard to remember that this is a role that can still exist. These are games that exist on a platform that is not supposed to host games. How easy would it have been for me to have never even come across the Nokia 225? The series of events that led to me purchasing the Nokia 225 were not happy ones. I didn't say I don't want to use this iPhone for happy reasons. It had a detrimental effect on my mental health. It had this sort of pseudo, I don't even know how to describe it. It was not good. I wasn't happy, like excited to go buy this. I was like, no, this might be something that can help me cure an illness, really. If not for a rapid decline in the stability of my mental health exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, I probably would have never seen any reason to go back and buy some old feature phone. I probably wouldn't have noticed how much I honestly disdained my iPhone and wouldn't have ended up with this. I could have gone my entire life. In fact, most people, I would say the vast majority of people on Earth will go their entire lives without even noticing the games on the Nokia 225 4G. I don't see more than maybe 80 people clicking on this video, do you? I do sometimes miss the days, though, when it felt like video games had to conform to the limitations of what their platform was actually meant to do. I miss the days of sneaking games out of something that wasn't meant to have games on it. I miss the days of being in the 9th grade study hall and downloading a version of Doom for my TI-83 calculator. It sucked, but I was playing games on my calculator in class and it looked like I was doing math. There's not really a lot more of that anymore, and that's because of technological advances. That's because there's better stuff that you can get on a device that basically does anything anyway. But it's still kind of nice to remember when games were something you kind of had to sneak. Games you kind of had to steal. You had to steal fun from the mundanity of everyday life. It wasn't just something expected on every device that you had. And that's what these games are. These games kind of remind me of that, of the fact that like video games can sort of come out of anywhere. You know, you can appreciate them coming from anywhere, and sometimes it's something that it's really a testament, I guess, to the spirit of human innovation, that we can find a way to play even on things that have no reason to be agents of play. I think that's so fascinating, so cool. Even if some of the games that come out on things like that are cosmic escape. But I appreciate this phone for showing me that. I appreciate these games for being that. And as far as I know, that's all.